Sometimes I feel like my job in this community is to talk about things that other people don't want to talk about. I often will find in the comments people will say things like, "Stop saying this. This is unorthodox," basically being accused of being a heretic. And the most common thing that I keep getting that reaction from people with is when I say that eating till stuffed is not good advice for everybody. One size doesn't fit all, and that there are many people who try the carnivore diet who try to eat till comfortably stuffed, and what ends up happening to them is they gain body fat. And they weren't starting out underweight either. They weren't getting to a good healthy place. They were starting out obese. And then they were gaining body fat by keeping to a carnivore diet. And usually when they take to social media to ask questions of people, like Facebook groups or whatever, they're usually told to just trust the process. Let it go. Don't worry, your body is healing. Despite the fact that a person who is clinically obese being told to eat till stuffed may not really be the best idea. And if they are actually gaining body fat, that could be detrimental to their health. And almost no one ever asks probing questions. And if they do, they usually start with the most obvious one, obviously, which is, are you eating dairy? Or what do you mean by a carnivore diet? If you are eating rice and fruit, like some people tell you to, cut those things out. They're probably not good for you if you are clinically obese. And that's fine. Asking those questions is fine. But there are other things that people should be asking. It could very well be that for those of us who eating till stuff does not work for, that we have a actual mental health condition that involves clinical, like binge eating, essentially. And this is called binge eating disorder. Now, I'm going to give you a gigantic disclaimer here. If this stuff sounds like you, I will try to put the titles of these studies on here. Some of this information came from the Mayo Clinic. If this sounds like you might want to go talk to a professional. Don't self-diagnose. Please do not do that. Go seek professional help if this sounds like you or sounds like somebody you know. But someone with binge eating disorder is not going to be the person who should probably be eating till stuffed. It may be that they have something else going on and that eating till stuffed is going to be detrimental to their health. So let's talk about this. What is binge eating disorder? It's a condition that happens and can start with children, but most often begins in late teens or early 20s, although it's been reported in both, again, young children and older adults. Approximately 40% of those with binge eating disorder are men. 3 out of 10 individuals looking for weight loss treatments show signs of binge eating disorder. 3 out of 10. This is according to the Mayo Clinic. Now, what does that mean? 3 out of 10, that's 30%. That means that a good number of people in these social media groups asking for advice on how to deal with a very serious situation in their lives have binge eating disorder or have had it in the past. Some signs of it. Eating unusually large amounts of food in a specific amount of time, such as over a 2-hour period. Think of the feasting too much, right? Feeling that your eating behavior is out of control. Can this happen in a carnivore for someone trying a carnivore diet? Oh, absolutely. If your hormonal signaling that tells you that you're satisfied, that you no longer need to eat food, isn't working, you will take more to go from not hungry at all to almost overstuffed. And I know that from experience. I'm one of those people. For whatever reason, my body will go from hungry to the hunger signaling being off once I've taken like the first or second bite of food, which is not enough to be satisfied for most people. And I will go from there to overstuffed. There is almost never a comfortably stuffed for me. It just doesn't happen. Another sign, eating even when you're full or not hungry. How many people do that? A lot of people do that. Now, in the carnivore space, obviously, eating when you're not hungry is not something you should be doing. Everybody agrees on that. Another sign is that you're eating rapidly during binging episodes. So you're out there binge eating and you are just wolfing down, fill in the blank. Is it possible for someone on a carnivore diet to have a binging episode? Absolutely it is. Again, these are documented mental health situations we're talking about here. Eating until you're uncomfortably full. Again, if that hormonal signaling that tells you you're not hungry anymore is broken, you might go from hungry to suddenly immediately that hunger signaling being gone, like immediately, like you ate half a hamburger patty, which is not going to be enough if that's your first meal of the day, to uncomfortably full once you've been trying to hit that comfortable area because the signaling is broken. Are you frequently eating alone or in secret? Are you ashamed to tell people, oh yeah, I had whatever it is you're not supposed to eat? Feeling depressed, disgusted, ashamed, guilty, or upset about your eating. I see this one a lot in those social media groups, and almost nobody ever picks up on it. That people, you can tell that there's something going on because they're afraid to admit they are ashamed of what's going on. They tell you just the absurd amounts of food they're eating, and then people tell them to just keep going. Frequently dieting, possibly without weight loss. That's the biggest one. This is the most obvious one. But that could also be a sign of a lot of things, including just for whatever reason, a person's metabolism is just torpedoed, that that they're not losing the body weight they were expecting to lose. Now, compare this with someone with bulimia. After a binge, you don't regularly compensate for extra calories by getting rid of what you were eating, or using or using things to help go to the bathroom, or exercising excessively. And I say that as I'm about to go to the gym right after I record this video. You may try to diet or eat normal meals, but restricting your diet may simply lead to more binge eating. This is where, this is so dicey, right? Like, I am a proponent that some people need to restrict. I have to. To lose the body fat, I have to restrict. It's just where I am. I have done eating till stuff for months at a time and not lost anything at all. Anything. Not even the water weight that I was told that I would lose. I've had that happen. But once I, restricted to what seemed like a sensible amount, which was like 2,000 calories a day, that's when the needle started moving in the good direction for me. But restricting your diet for some people in this situation may simply lead to more binge eating, which is why the best advice they can get is to have a mental health professional check them out for binge eating disorder. And of course, the severity of binge eating disorder is determined by how often these episodes of binging occur during a week. If you're even having one a week, that's a lot. You can undo in a single episode of falling off the wagon an entire week or more's worth of weight loss, at least temporarily. The water weight, but imagine you have this happen to you. Let's say you've been good for 2 weeks. You haven't had an episode. And then for whatever reason, you got to cut through that bakery section of the grocery store on your way to the ribeyes. Why does Walmart put the bakery next to the meat department? I will never understand that. Some things you notice when you're a carnivore that you didn't notice beforehand. But you're walking through there and you see their really garbage quality donuts and you can't help it. You buy one and you eat it, and then the next thing you know, the roller coaster ride begins for that day. But you get control. Maybe you don't even eat that much stuff. But the biochemical process of just going off the rails, you get on the scale the next day, put on 10 pounds of water weight. Again, notice I said water weight, but a person in this situation will just see that 10 pounds. This is serious stuff, folks. And this is why, the one thing I've noticed, that in the carnivore community of professionals, the top tier people that we all follow and watch, I have not seen any mental health professionals. If there is one, put their name in the comments and the name of their channel. Links won't work in my comment section. They just don't. But YouTube filters them out. But put their name and YouTube channel or podcast name in the comments if they are a carnivore or keto mental health professional. I'm not talking about Dr. Siwaz either. He talks about emotional eating a lot, and good on him for that. That is a topic that needs to be talked about. But he's also not a mental health professional. He is a different kind of doctor. But if there is an actual mental health professional in our space, please put their name and podcast or blog name or whatever it is in the comments, please. Now, there are a number of these studies out there that show this. You had a study from 2007 by Hudson and a couple of the researchers with the title The Prevalence and Correlates of Eating Disorders in the National Comorbidity Survey Replication, published in Biological Psychiatry. It was a study that is self-reported. Okay, so we have to be careful here, but a 2007 study asked 9,282 English-speaking Americans about a variety of mental health conditions, including eating disorders. The results, published there found that 3.5% of women and 2% of men had binge eating disorder at some point in their life. It makes it 3 times more common than anorexia and bulimia, and is more common than breast cancer, HIV, and schizophrenia. So, this may be, somebody watching this right now may fit into this group. Another study in 2010 by Stine and a few others, with the title An 8-Year Longitudinal Study of the Natural History of Threshold, Subthreshold, and Partial Eating Disorders from a Community Sample of Adolescents, published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology. What they found is this. They followed a group of 496 adolescent girls for 8 years until they were 20. They found that 5.2% of the girls met criteria for DSM-5 level anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating disorder. When the researchers included nonspecific eating disorder symptoms, a total of 13.2% of the girls had suffered from DSM-5 eating disorder by age 20. A lot of social reasons for that. A lot of media reasons for that. A lot of just sort of upended of values reasons in our culture for that. And we're not going to talk about that stuff here. Just look at that number. 13.2% by 20. And remember, binge eating disorder typically shows up in your 20s. So these are people who are preset for this. Same researcher with a different group in 2012 had a study with the title Eating Disorders. It published in the Child and Adolescent Psychology 2nd edition. Combining information from several sources, so meta-analysis, they found that between 0.2 and 3.5% of females and 0.9 and 2% of males will develop binge eating disorder. So it's more commonly found in females, but it seems like statistically it's more solidly you'll find it with males. The subthreshold binge eating disorder occurs in 1.6% of adolescent females. And again, this begins in your early 20s. So when someone is asking for help, it would be a good idea, maybe to, not publicly, I wouldn't want to ever, like on Facebook, out somebody with this publicly. But we need more probing questions, because I really having been watching this now for a couple of years, watching people come into these groups begging for help from people about why it's not working. And people just giving mantras in response. There may be something else going on here. Because when we're talking about, a 13.2% of young women by the age of 20 have something on this list. And it could be up to like 3.5%. This doesn't sound like much. But there are a lot of people trying the carnivore diet right now. And you see this stuff often enough that at least a few of them have this situation. If you're comfortable letting us know, let me know in the comments if this sounds like you. Did this happen to you? Do you have this binge eating disorder? Have you been diagnosed? And how did you treat it? Let me know, please, in the comments. And like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. I was just sharing this on social media. That helps a lot too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore. Thanks for tuning in today.